Let's take a look at the Joe Flowers signature card. Joe Flowers is a survival expert and a world-renowned tool and knife designer. Joe leads groups through the Amazon with his company Bushcraft Global. Like all the Grim Workshop tools, this is stainless steel and small enough to fit in the credit card slot of your wallet. This white backer is removable, and the backside is a permanent adhesive, so you can attach this to something that's going to be there until you need it. All of the tools come off the cards and are held in place with a tool retention system. So you can use all the tools, and when you're done with it, put it back on the backer, give it a press, and it's there till you need it next time. So when we take a look at this card, the most dominant feature is going to be the knife. So here is the knife that Joe included, and we can see dead center of the blade, that is actually a tick remover. So that has been in other Grimm tools as well. It's handy to have. It's going to be handy to have right dead center in the middle of the knife where you need it. Now if you look at the size of the knife, it's almost a full 2-finger grip. So this has probably more grip than blade, and that's going to definitely aid in controllability. The blade style, we can see it's pretty flat, and the tip itself is very, very fine. So that's telling me this knife is going to excel at crafting. This is not a true Wharncliffe style blade, but a small tip like this is going to be great for tight radiuses in wood. It's going to work out well for cutting bark or any type of hide. I've also got 2 lash holes on the handle of the knife, and that would work really well for attaching a larger handle, so you have a full length handle to work with. Now that the knife is back, let's take a look at the spear that Joe chose to put on his card. The first time you take a tool out, you can see there's a small little metal tab that's still attached. So with that pried away just a little bit with that knife, I can get it with my fingers and it just twists free. I'm a huge fan of a spear tip. This is almost a true harpoon when you look at it. This has 2 lashing holes in the back, as well as these indentations to attach it to a stick. So if we look at the business end of this spear, we can see we've got a nice fine point, as well as 2 different barbs. Now that's a great idea. The fine tip is going to allow you to penetrate smaller game or smaller pan-sized fish, where a bigger point would have a more likely chance of just pushing it away. So for a small quick grab into a soft skin animal like maybe a frog, this first point is going to do a great job. If it's something a little bit larger, say you could get into some bigger fish and maybe actually pin it to the bank. Deeper penetration gets you into the second barb, and there is no chance that you're losing game at that point. This is a great size spear tip as well, because I could half this to an arrow. This is not overly large. So I could shoot this out of a bow, I could shoot this out of a sling bow, I could also attach it to an atlatl dart pretty darn easy. Another great feature to this small first barb is that's going to work out great as a gaffed hook. So fish that are caught or marginally caught, you've got a great chance of hooking them in the gill with this barb and helping you land the fish. The next feature we're going to look at is going to be this drill. So here's the drill bit that Joe included in his card, and I believe I read where he said this was similar to a shark's tooth, a primitive drill bit from a shark's tooth. And it kind of looks like that to me. And this would work a couple different ways. I don't have any soft wood that would work best with this that's not frozen right now. I've got a little piece of black walnut here off the chopping block. And you can turn this just like a key. And this is a great feature for crafting. There's certain types of primitive traps as well that you have to bore a hole through the wood. So you can see in just a few minutes that's got a nice rounded hole. You can do this with a knife, but you don't get nearly as clean of a hole. So because of the taper of this, you can vary the hole as well. So if I wanted a smaller hole in a thin piece of wood, I would have to go in one side and then try to line it up and meet in the middle. If I was looking for a bigger hole or a flared hole, you can just run the drill bit into whatever depth is appropriate. So if you notice, there's 2 holes as well, and that's going to be used to lash this to a hand drill. So this drill is going to be a lot more effective. You're going to be able to get a lot higher RPMs, and you're going to be able to put your upper body weight on it using this similar to you would start a hand drill. And to do that, you could just get a piece of cane. This is not the straightest thing in the world, and this is actually a broken arrow, so this would work just as well. And you can see kind of like that. So this with about an 18-inch long, pretty straight branch, and you're going to be drilling some holes pretty darn easy. Next on the card, we have 2 different size needles. I'm a huge fan of needles in a survival kit. Steel needles are one of the more popular trade-ons on the American frontier, and a needle this size, this is telling me this is going to be more for crafting natural materials. And if you take a closer look at the eye here, you can see that this is open-ended, and that is a great idea. My eyes are not the best anymore. So there's a good comparison of the 2 needles, and both have that same open-ended eye, which is an absolutely fabulous design. A thinner, fine needle like this is a great companion to have with the larger needle. You're much less likely to force this into a bad situation to break it. This would be much, much more appropriate to any modern fabric. So a sleeping bag, a down jacket, even wool, I would attack with the smaller needle first. I'm going to leave the needles out so you can take a look at this next tool here. This is going to be used for removing a splinter. This is a very unique tool. I've never seen anything like this on a survival card. It's very similar to the needle with the point, but I've got a much better area to hold on to. And the fact that Joe chose to include this in the card, that tells you a lot about Joe and where Joe travels. Remember, Joe does jungle expeditions. On the bottom, we have another tool to process wood. This is going to be a scoop. So here's the scoop out of the card, and you can see this has Joe's signature on it. So this scoop is actually a very, very handy tool to have with you. I can see a couple different ways that I would personally use this. This is a great compact way to carry tools that I use all the time. So I got a small branch here that I split in half, and then I just put a little bit of a saw kerf in the end of it. Then I can set the scoop into these handles, and I've got holes to lash it into place. So when I take that stick and lash it onto the scoop, you can see it looks a lot closer to its big brother here, a draw knife. Now I use this for bow making. I use this for carving. You can make canoe paddles with this. This size is deceptive. This is plenty wide enough to do a bow. The shaft of a canoe paddle is going to work well with this. There's a lot of other things you can do with this besides this, but this is definitely the most unique, is turning it into a mini draw knife. So I'm sitting on my shave pony right now, and this is not a luxury you're going to have in the woods, but it's going to be a great way to dim with this tool. There's a lot of different ways to put a stick like this under tension. So this is just a green stick. This is going to represent an arrow or whatever the heck you happen to be making. And you can see it's all covered in ice. We just had an ice storm last night. So you can use this 2 different ways. You can use it bevel up or bevel down, depending if you're trying to dig into the wood or if you're just trying to take off the bark. So that did a great job of skinning the bark off and leaving the wood pretty much untouched. So because this is a thin stainless steel, I can give this a flex as well. So if I wanted to bend this and do more of a seat, or I could probably make a shallow spoon with this, this would be great for flexing around and chamfering the edge of a canoe paddle, or if I was making an axe handle in the field. This is going to be great, and then I can just bend this right back again, flat, and get it back in the card when I'm done. Another great use for this scoop would be to use it similarly to a cabinet scraper. So I've got an unfinished bow here, and this is not the way I would use it other than to keep it on camera, but just using this as a card, I can get nice shavings. There we go, you can see that pretty good. These little curls like this would be great for processing tinder to get a fire going, and especially in a wet environment. But this is going to be a great way to finish off a tool that you're just crafting in the woods. The Joe Flowers signature card is a great design. Definitely a crafting inspired knife. That knife is going to be similar to working with an X-Acto knife with that fine tip, or a razor blade. It's going to be great for working with bark or hide. Sticking with the crafting theme with this drill, that's going to be awesome for working on any type of bark containers, making traps. You can take that drill and put it on a hand spindle as well and get some real power behind it. And then this scoop is very, very unique. With something like that, now I'm able to tackle larger projects. I'm able to make bows. I'm able to make canoe paddles, axe handles. Very, very well thought out design. For first aid, there is a splinter remover as well as a tick remover. That tells you a lot about the areas that Joe hangs out in. We have the large and the small open-eyed crafting needles. That's going to work great for gear repair as well as first aid. Now add a little line to this card using the line wrap, and you're going to be ready for any expedition Joe would take you on. Now, I did not cover how I attach the handles to the scoop. It's fairly straightforward, but if you want to see how I do it, I can make future videos on that, as well as attaching the drill to a handle or putting an extended handle onto one of the knives or hafting an arrowhead.